Chapter 4, Homecoming. Inglewood Park Cemetery was still the same as he remembered. With its infinitely flowing fountains, lush foliage, and grand monuments, it felt more like a palatial estate than a burial ground. Everybody from Billy Preston to Billy Buckwheat Thomas was buried here. A lot of famous white folk, too. It was also notorious for being haunted, but Hawk thought it was the perfect final resting place for his mother. He'd been especially happy to see that her grave had been meticulously cared for. He'd be sure to write a letter of appreciation to the administration office. Taking a last look around, he whispered, "I love you, Mama," as he passed through the towering wrought iron gates. It had been a long time since he'd been home, and L.A. felt both familiar and strange. While the mountains still imposed themselves majestically against a pot of blue skies, palm trees still bowed gracefully with the many winds, and freeways still snaked along like celebrity funeral processions, something felt different. The giant green letters of Susan Miller Dorsey's name stood out against the white field of the high school sign. The first glimpse of his alma mater instantly transported him to back in the day. He automatically saluted the flag that still flew in front of the outdated stucco exterior. The craggy grass creeping over the edges of the cracked sidewalk felt like the perfect welcome mat. As soon as he saw the front steps of the school, the old R&B hit, "Whoop, that is," instantly popped in his head. This was where he'd first run into Laretha Moulton. Laretha, with her oh so pretty dimples, had dropped her lunch when he stumbled into her. Man, was I nervous, he thought, as he remembered that first day of school. While standing in front of the building, he'd panicked after seeing a sea of red handkerchiefs visible in every direction. Oh, hell no, he thought. I'm wading ass deep in bloods, and me and my blue dockers. He was new to the area. When his mother had gotten a housekeeping job at a large hotel for more money than she'd ever made, the first thing she'd done was move out of Pacoima. All he'd wanted was to play football here, but now he wondered if he'd made a mistake. He'd planned to go straight to the Lost and Found and get some pants, any pants to change into. That's why he hadn't seen Laretha. He'd been looking past her into the school's interior, wondering which way to go once he got inside. To make matters worse, they'd bumped heads when he'd been down to help her pick up her lunch. After that, she turned her head whenever they passed in the hallways. He wondered where she was now. Was she married? Did she have kids? He bitterly remembered Vernon Howard, the gangbanger who also had a thing for her. He'd been the first person to ever pull a gun on Hawk. Vernon had also been the first guy Hawk knew to get killed in a drive-by. He slowed the car down as they soaked in every curve and contour of the buildings. He thought about going inside to relive the sights and smells of the hallways and classrooms, but decided against it. Too many security hoops to jump through nowadays. He'd heard of plans to give the place a facelift. The faded modular buildings could definitely use some renovation, but that was a concern for older heads. As he cruised down Farmdale Avenue, remembering first kisses and rivalries, he was just a 16-year-old kid again. When he turned on the Constitution Avenue and saw Jackie Robinson Stadium, it was like seeing holy ground. Memories of the stadium locker room where he first laced up for the Dorsey Dons came flooding back. This was where his transformation from introverted mama's boy to star athlete had begun. In the beginning, things had been sketchy with his new teammates. They hadn't known what to make of the quiet nerd who didn't hang out with the usual crowd. Did he think he was better than they were? They didn't know that his mama just wouldn't let him run the streets. Early on, they'd called him Chicken Hawk, but he'd never flinched. At scrimmages, when they tried to put a hurt on him, he always gave as good as he got. Often as not, he was the one bringing the pain. It wasn't long before it became obvious what he could do on the field. He never argued with his coaches or players. He always let his game do the talking. Gradually, grudgingly, his teammates started to respect him, then accept him. In short order, they dropped the chicken and just started calling him Hawk. Yet, for as much of a team player as he was, he never fully trusted anybody. Friends turned deadly around here real fast. It was during this time that he started to master the philosophy of go along to get along. His BMOC status solidified on a November Friday evening in the fall of '91, the night of the big game. Nothing in the high school sports universe was bigger than a Dorsey Crenshaw football game. Even though he was only a freshman, Huck had managed to make varsity as a third-string tailback. The Dons had kicked the Cougars' ass the last time they played and added insult to injury when they'd won the after-game fight as well. On this night, the Cougars showed up like they always had, ready to play. After a back-and-forth battle and several lead changes, the end game went from tense to straight Hollywood. It was 4th and goal with 3 seconds left on the clock, and the Dons were down by 4. More by luck than design, the Dons had driven 80 yards in the final minute of the game, but they had stalled on the Cougar 3. Dorsey's All-American tailback, Sharman Shaw, was out of the game thanks to Crenshaw D-backs Kalian Green and Demetrius Henderson viciously converging on him and ending his night. To make matters worse, Dorsey had lost their fullback to an unsportsmanlike conduct call. A field goal was useless, so out of pure desperation, Coach Paul Knox put Hawk in. Hawk was supposed to seal the edge on an option play, but when the quarterback muffed the snap, the ball ended up on the ground. Hawk snatched it up, but instead of running, he flicked it to the tight end, who made a fingertip catch in the end zone as time ran out. That's when the shooting started. Most of the Crenshaw Cougars were Crips. A lot of them were from Hawk's neighborhood. Some of them were people he was cool with, but not tonight. Humiliated by the last-second loss, the Crips in the stands took revenge on the crowd. Everybody was scrambling for cover when Hawk saw Larita, frozen with fear, standing on the sidelines, totally exposed. 2 people got shot that October Friday night. Neither of them was Larita. In the midst of the chaos, she found herself safely sheltered beneath the protective shoulder pads of trusty number 32. After that, she'd never ignored him again. They went together for 2 years before her family moved to Oakland. He was reliving the bittersweet pain of first love lost when he heard his name called. Hawk? Jesse Hawkins? He turned to see the smiling, familiar face of his old friend Dennis Cox. I thought that was you. God damn. When you get back? As the men walked toward each other, there was a sense that not a day had passed unseen between them. Damn. Ain't this a bitch? Hawk chortled as he hugged his old best friend. After a second, he stepped back to take each other's measure. Dennis was wearing work clothes. His olive green cotton t-shirt had the word supervisor printed in a semicircle over his heart. He looked good, healthy. A far cry from the last time Hawk had seen him. Dennis had gone from being a well-dressed street hustler to a ragged-ass crackhead in the blink of an eye. By the time Hawk had headed off to pre-flight indoctrination, Dennis was locked up. Man, I heard you was dead. Yeah, nigga. Dennis put his arms out to his side and made whooshing motions like a jet engine. Then he started jerking around like he was crashing, and his rotund body shook when he shouted, "Bam! I heard you was dead." The laughter was deep and real. When he finally caught his breath, Dennis said, "Sure am glad you ain't dead." "Man, you too." "How long you been back? Where you staying at?" "Just been back a minute. Got a little place over on 10th and Adams." "Man, that's so cool. I'm still out in Pacoima. Got a little 3-bedroom, married a little Mexican shorty, twin girls." Hawk grinned so hard his face hurt. "Look at you. I never thought I'd see you with a square job, let alone wife and kids. Learned groundskeeping up at Wayside. Worked a bit on the fire line, too. When I applied here, I put it all down as my work experience." Hawk shook his head. "I can't believe these people hired a convict." "Me neither, but it's been 20 years. You've been here that long." "What I said. Drive in from Pacoima every morning. First one here every day. 5 a.m. Look at these hands." Dennis held out calloused, gnarled fingers for Hawk's inspection. Damn. This was a whole new Dennis. Back in the day, the aspiration of most young men in the hood was to be a player. The mark of a true player was the fact that he had soft hands. Soft hands meant that you made your money with your mind, not your back. In those days, Dennis's hands were as soft as butter. Now they were harder than petrified wood. A glint of sunlight flashing off of Dennis's wrist caught Hawk's eye. He looked down to see that Dennis was wearing a beautiful heavy yellow gold watch. Now this was the Dennis he remembered. Glancing at Dennis's feet, he half expected to see a pair of handcrafted Italian cap toes. But no, Dennis was wearing work boots. Nodding at the watch, Hawk asked, "So, they're paying you right? Well, you got a side hustle." "Oh, you best believe they paying me right. And I got a side hustle." Seeing a trace of disappointment in Hawk's face, Dennis quickly added, "Oh, hell no, nothing like that. I quit the dumb shit a long time ago. Totally legit. I'm head groundskeeper here, plus I work ground maintenance over at Inglewood Park Cemetery on the weekends." Hawk's smile broadened. "I just left there." "So you're the one taking care of Mama's grave?" "You know that. Your mama more my mama than my mama." I think about Miss Hawkins every time I go on that side. Hawk felt the bond that only lifelong friends experience. Dennis had been taking care of his mother's grave, even though he thought Hawk was dead. That's a good friend. Dennis's eyes suddenly shone with the memory of the good old days. I remember she'd pick us up after school, take us to Mickey D's, the movies. Y'all had that pool at y'all's apartment. Summer comes, she bringing out lemonade, yelling at us. Y'all stop that running and keep y'all voices down. All the time she making one of us and all us put together. Dennis snapped his fingers, looked at Hawk and laughed. And that time Dickie Washington almost drowned. Don't be for Miss Hawkins, he'd have died sure. Hawk's head tilted back. Dickie Washington. I haven't heard that name in years. How Dickie doing? Oh, Dickie dead. Serious. HIV, pneumonia, some shit. Dickie been dead. The look on Hawk's face triggered Dennis to add. Dude, everybody we know either dead or in jail. Terry Pettigrew. Dead. Lou Bob. Dead. Toy Tommy. Ain't nobody seen Tommy in years. I'm telling you, son. Niggas all fucked up around here. What about our boy Jilly Jill? He all right. He's working for the city. But me and him about the only two I know who got jobs. Dennis hesitated. But what about you? What you gonna do? I'm thinking about going skydiving. Hawk smiled in Dennis's face. Nigga, you got a serious death wish. What you trying to prove? Nothing. I'm just alive, that's all. You gonna get enough of that white boy shit. It's not white boy shit. Fuck if it ain't. What other nigga you know jumping out of airplanes, flying jets and shit? I know a couple. You would. Hawk suddenly got serious. I got an offer to work with the Everhart campaign. Dennis's head snapped back. Get off the gas. Look at you. His happiness for his friend was suddenly interrupted. That's good for you personally. But Everhart ain't gonna do nothing for niggas in general. Why you ain't working for Booker? Booker didn't ask. Plus, you know I'm a Republican, right? No, I ain't know that. But I ain't surprised.